You're borrowing at 5% when you could borrow at 4% to deficit spend.
If I borrow it,
it makes absolutely no sense to me why you would do that.
If I borrow,
other than to try to artificially stimulate the economy.
If I borrow at 4%.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into an intense exchange that's causing a lot of buzz in Washington right now. Senator John Kennedy is known for not holding back, and he certainly didn't in this recent hearing where he grilled Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen over the Biden administration's borrowing practices. We're talking billions of dollars at stake, taxpayer money, and a deficit that's ballooning. Let's break it all down and see what the chaos is all about. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. So here's what's going on. The United States government is currently running a huge deficit. Senator Kennedy says it's around $1.1 trillion, but Yellen quickly corrects him. It's actually $1.6 trillion. Yeah, it's even worse than expected. This deficit means the government is spending way more than it's bringing in through revenue. And how are they covering that gap? By borrowing more money? The problem now is that the government isn't exactly getting the best deal on its borrowing. Kennedy's not playing around. He points out that the government is issuing short-term debt at higher interest rates of around 5.4%, when they could lock in a lower rate of 4.4% on long-term debt. His frustration is crystal clear. He's essentially saying, why make taxpayers pay billions more in interest than necessary? But here's where it gets really intense. Kennedy accuses Yellen and the Treasury of timing the market, which means they're gambling on interest rates going down in the future. Yellen insists that the government's goal is to minimize costs over time, but Kennedy isn't buying it. He calls it double talk, and that's when the tension in the room really spikes. He asks Yellen straight up, why borrow at 5% when you can borrow at 4%? What's the real motive here? It's a moment that really drives home the tension between fiscal and monetary policy, with Kennedy implying there's more than meets the eye. He suggests the whole thing is politically motivated, that this isn't about smart borrowing, it's about giving the economy a temporary boost in time for the upcoming election.
That is first, that costs taxpayers a lot more money in interest, and number two, you're working at cross purposes with the Federal Reserve, because what you're doing is stimulating the market. You're pumping money into the economy. And Jay Powell is over here beavering away, trying to reduce inflation. And you're beavering away, trying to increase it by paying an interest rate that is 100 basis points higher than you would have to pay. And the only reason I can figure that y'all are doing that is to try to give the economy a sugar high 5 months before an election. Why else would anybody want to borrow at 5% when you can borrow at 4%?
Well, there is a good reason that investors are willing to accept just over 4% on a 10-year Treasury bond when they can earn 5.4% on a one-year Treasury bill.
I'm not worried about the investor.
Well,
I'm not worried about the investor. I'm worried about the taxpayer.
It's the same logic.
And let me ask you again, because I'm going to run out of time. And look, you're smarter than me. I know that. But I can grasp this concept. You're borrowing at 5% when you could borrow at 4% to deficit spend.
If I borrow it,
it makes absolutely no sense to me why you would do that.
If I borrow,
other than to try to artificially stimulate the economy.
If I borrow at 4%, if I borrow at 4.5%, I'm locking in that cost over 10 years.
Yeah, but you just said you weren't trying to time the market.
Well,
you are trying to time the market.
It isn't.
So what do you think? Is Kennedy right to accuse the Treasury of mismanaging taxpayer dollars? Or is Yellen justified in her defense of the government's borrowing strategy? It's a complex issue with huge implications for the economy and, of course, for all of us as taxpayers. One thing's for sure, this showdown isn't over. Thanks for watching. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to like, share, and of course, subscribe for more updates on these critical political moments. Stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll see you in the next video.